Hello, everyone. This is Illiterate. My name is Evan. I am getting married this week.
My name is Taylor, and I will be a witness.
We are doing a bit of a different episode, a celebration. First off, it's our 100th episode, so snaps, Taylor. It's our 100th episode. But coincidentally, by the time this comes out, I will have gotten married the day prior. So we're recording this a little bit earlier than we typically do. Me and my fiance are eloping into a very small house on the West Coast. Only Taylor is going to be a witness. It's a very small kind of gathering there, very intimate kind of thing in remembrance of everything that's gone on this year. We've kind of surrendered our whole process to, our whole engagement to everything. There's been tragedy all over the world. So we still want to get married, and all the other fun things can come later. But that's what's going on this week. So we thought, well, good opportunity. It's our 100th episode. Why not take a minute and actually pick apart marriage for a second with the illiterate lens?
Film, literature, history, traditions. We're going to cover it all. Evan, you looked into film stuff, of course.
I started looking. I had this kind of thought. Me and Taylor have talked about wedding used as a device, primarily, classically in comedy, but is more prevalent than I think we realize. So I just started thinking of wedding movies that nobody really thinks about. 27 Dresses, there's, the obvious ones, but I think there's far more movies than anybody gives any credence to where marriage is kind of a central thing. We either are going to lead up to it and there's no pretense to that at all, or it is some obstacle in the middle of it. So I just kind of went down the rabbit hole. So I found a few of my favorites, and then I've got just kind of a list of ones that I just, based on the title, you would be like, really? Wow, yeah. Oh man. Like, oh yeah, there is a wedding in that. So I just I threw together that kind of thing,
And I looked into the literature side of things, which was kind of hard to do because marriage is so ubiquitous and has been around for so long that it is, like you said, a staple of a lot of media, but a lot of the customs and things. And unfortunately, because it's such a broad world that we live in, Evan is having, I assume, a traditional modern American wedding in the Judeo-Christian sense as we know. But that's where all of the traditions that we're going to be talking about and things, just because that's what we're experiencing. Right. But I will throw in a little bit of some other cultural stuff, but just to get that out of the way, that's what I'm
super excited because I walk around all the time in my life and kind of wonder what are the reverberations of like the things that we do all the time, and what were the original thoughts there. So in particular, in the process of getting married, like I've been wondering more and more about that, the echoes of what these things really symbolize and mean. And obviously it's meaning more to me as the day is ever looming. So I guess one in particular that because I'm physically am doing it, we were writing our own vows, and in doing that, I had all sorts of questions and thoughts about where this came from and what exactly that's supposed to mean. So I have no idea if you have anything on that at all, but I know that on the line of kind of picking out the classic accompaniments of marriage, that's one that I've been personally going through and doing, that I've really wondered what the real lineage of it is.
So let's just dive into starting from the beginning of history. As we know, I don't have particularly
great place to start.
Here we go. Well, so I don't really have as it relates to the vows, but what marriage essentially boiled down to for most of human history is strengthening and maintaining family alliances. Mm-hmm. Love doesn't come in until much, much later. There was also, in terms of family stuff, there's an anthropologist, Robin Fox, estimated that the majority of all marriages throughout history are between first and second cousins. Like it is about dowries and land and bride prices. It's a very tactical.
That's so funny that you actually mentioned that, because in my quest today, I was reminded and I was drawn to this movie, particular for one aspect. Mm-hmm. Spaceballs is one of those wedding movies you don't think about, and it has my hands down favorite cinema wedding minister officiant.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's the minister who is continuously interrupted and really just wants to get the ceremony over. And they try it twice. The movie is kind of bookended by this, where she falls in love with the main character, the Han Solo Echo, but she's not allowed to marry him because he's not a prince. That kind of becomes
Right.
the whole thing. And she's trapped into this arranged marriage with this like bored, sleepy prince that's just uninteresting. The minister does his short version when Lone Star, the main character's name, shows up and realizes, yes, I am a prince, I can marry you. And so they throw the sleepy groom out of the way. It's like the minister's like, okay, we're gonna do the short version. Do you? Good,
Yeah.
you're married.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it definitely, from more than we would like to admit, has nothing to do with love and is just.
He says that. Excuse me,
practical.
I'm trying to perform a wedding here, which has nothing to do with love. He actually says that.
And speaking of the minister stuff, so like the most common form, and the church fought to get into, like we're talking about again, Western marriages traditionally tried to get into what marriage was, because the most common form across human history was not a man and a woman. It was one man and many women. And that's across cultures for thousands of years. It was the man, has all of the status and everything. So as far as the monogamy and the just one man and one woman and the church, that comes in more between the 6th and the 9th centuries. And eventually they prevail and consider it, hey, this is a sacrament, which means it's a ceremony for God's grace. So that gives more respect for wives, forbidden from divorcing, more faithful, question mark, because it still didn't happen. There was still men could have dalliances with prostitutes and do whatever they wanted, and the women couldn't. But at least there was like, oh, this is under the auspices of the church and priests, etc. And like we said, love doesn't come in until after the Middle Ages, sort of the 13th century. There's a physician to the King of France who wrote a piece called Advice on Love. And so that concept of romantic love gives a little bit of leverage towards women, because that's where we get kind of the courtly love through Knights of the Crusade, chivalry, grand gestures of romance like this. That wasn't even a concept before. It was just like, you have more cows, you have a better family. You have no choice.
Good decision.
Yeah,
this is a good life choice for me, Dad.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like and then of course we have Shakespeare, the Enlightenment, Jane Austen, all that coming in. But I also saw like the weddings and stuff for these. Just my little piece of literature. Most of them happen off stage. Like the wedding for Pride and Prejudice, I went back and read that section, and it's just a sentence. And it's, quote, happy for all her maternal feelings was the day on which Mrs. Bennet got rid of her 2 most deserving daughters. And that's all that the wedding is. And you'd think, you hear these stories, these classic romance stories or wedding stories, and it's like, that's all it was. The wedding does not get a lot of play. Same thing with Shakespeare's stuff. It's more about the tension between society and wooing a lover, but the actual wedding itself occurs off.
If I'm not mistaken, and I might be horribly mistaken, but my fiance was telling me that they did something similar in Crazy Rich Asians, where they talk up the wedding, but then that by the time you get to it, then it's like the end of the book.
Right. I don't know with the movie. I know that popped up on my list as far as. Do you have any movies, since we're back on the movie train, elsewise to recommend, or that you think has a wedding that would be worth showing, since a lot of the classic stuff that we think of, like Shakespeare and Jane Austen, doesn't actually show the wedding?
I think the one that, and this is a kind of, again, another offshoot, but it's one that I think is so kind of classic, and I swear it's like 2 shots in it, but 13 Going on 30. It's been one of my like favorite, I guess, guilty pleasure movies, but I actually think it's great. And I think they have a beautiful anti-climax at the end of this movie in his bedroom, because they're getting married out in the backyard, and they used to be neighbors as children. So she goes home to her mother's house and finds him in his bedroom, where he has to have this like really amazing monologue. It's Mark Ruffalo. This is how I was introduced to Mark Ruffalo, but he has this incredible monologue about the choices that we make and the paths that we go down. And you can't just, turn around and forget all that. And then, like the classic movie thing is choose me right now. And he's going, I can't, it's not that easy. And even giving her the validation of, I want to. it's like the most anti-climax,
Mm-hmm.
real ending, and I think it really gets overlooked. But that's just one that I think is
No,
really
yeah.
amazing. But she kind of takes that hard rejection and then gets snapped back, and she's 13 again, and she knows what to do, and then it flashes forward, and they get married. But
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So, speaking of which, going back to our history stuff, tying into kind of like you said, the choice and it's not so easy and whatnot, jumping past Shakespeare, Enlightenment, Jane Austen into 1920, again, talking about Western, the classic white wedding stuff,
mm-hmm.
women's right to vote. So now each union consists literally of two citizens, which creates even more equality. Talking about the changes to this whole thing, I saw again anthropologists saying there's been more changes in the last 40 years than in the last 5,000 when it comes
Whoa,
to marriages, which is why there's so many different ways of going about it, and
that's
and our
incredible.
and our understance of the traditions
It's got to
sort
be
of
the
get lost.
information age. The rate at which we exchange information. The world is so much more accessible
Yeah.
than it has ever been, and it's easy to kind of get lost in that. I suppose, get
Hmm.
jaded in it. I suppose.
Along with the history of weddings, I also kind of looked into the history of gay marriage, just
Mm,
because that was also part of this. And I
yeah.
saw way back, because marriage started around, I guess they would say 4,350 years old. There's evidence on these tablets in Mesopotamia about the laws of married couples and their
Yeah.
slaves and, all the classic Mesopotamia stuff. But there were also in these tablets Mesopotamian prayers that included blessings for such couples who are same sex. So that was
Mm,
also written down even as far back as then. And the biggest thing that I found related to it historically, the Roman Emperor Nero, who was around 54 to 68.
Played the violin as Rome burned, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know the apocryphal, but the fall of Rome was attributed to him. He had two gay marriages. He
Oh,
got
really?
married. He twice married men in formal ceremonies. One
Nice.
of them, he was the wife, and it's written down that he wore the veil
Huh.
and everything. And then in another one, his partner was the wife and was dubbed an empress and everything.
Interesting.
So it's yeah, and I don't know all the context and
Yeah.
whether or not it was forced. I mean, I know
I
the
just have a lot more questions about that.
right,
That's fascinating.
the
That is
one.
actually cool.
Yeah, I won't go into all of Nero's reign and everything, but that is a part of history for him. And homosexual weddings were common enough that there was a Roman social commentator who commented on them in his writing. So it was a thing, but it eventually got outlawed in 342. And then,
Okay.
like I said, the church from there on up until they get to the 9th century is trying to make it such a thing. But I thought that was interesting that who would even have known that the emperor of
Yeah.
Rome had
Yeah,
two
I'm
had
like
two
that.
gay marriages,
I'm kind of like that. You would assign the wife
wife and
part of it,
husband.
like yeah. I'm like he would designate. Like I don't know. I don't, and then it would be different in the next one. That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
I like I said. I just have like I'm like now I'm fascinating. I'm like wait. So how was he able to do that? What was that like
Well, I'll post a
when he
link to
did that?
that
You know, like
to the
what was his
longer.
life
Yeah.
like in that way? Like that's really fascinating. I mean, this is ancient. This-
Hmm.
I'm really fascinated by that. I'm gonna have to do some more research.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the history stuff. And then I also looked into all of the various traditions that we have now and how they're all based on something much more savage, since we know that it all started from, hey,
Metal,
you're
something
mine.
rad.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff are you doing with your wedding that maybe would be considered traditional, and maybe I can tell you what
We are
parts of it do you
definitely,
do?
as far as the ceremony goes, and what the officiant is going to be saying, that is going to be kept pretty traditional. We'll have a first look, which I feel like is maybe a newer thing, but we're kind of using that as a to texture everything out because so much of this is scaled down and different because we're in the age of COVID. We're trying to do this as absolutely safely as we possibly can. So we're trying to see like, well, we're typically
What do
that
you
we
mean by
get to do
first
on our
look?
own. It's where I like we see her in her dress for the first time privately before anything happens, and then we like
Oh,
take pictures, and then the ceremony happens. And it's in this moment that we are kind of inserting our personal handwritten vows that we'll exchange privately. So it's kind of
I
this just
see.
very, very intimate moment with just me and her. There's no even like officiant there to kind of texture it out more and kind of recenter the focus of like, if everything else, if all the celebration and all the guests and all the partying, all that stuff is later and going to come next year, if we're going to do this today is about me and her. So what can we do that really makes sure the focus is there between me and her, and about what this day represents to us, which personally is about really affirming a relationship that we've been so confident in for so long.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
So the first look thing interested me because I'm sure you know, but there's a certain tradition of like, oh, you can't see even the day of
right.
until the moment of walking down the aisle, etc.
Right,
And
and
the
this is
bride has
something
a
we've talked about, yeah.
yeah. More traditionally, the bride has a veil, so it's like you literally can't even see her face. All that stuff. So all that hiding stuff comes from the fact that the groom can't know what's going on with the daughter, and they don't want the deal to be broken. So the veil is to hide the daughter's face until the last moment, so the groom can't back
Uh,
out. Same with everything else, trying to make her as desirable as possible until he says I do, and it's too late if
right.
both parties were not satisfied.
It's like
That's
some Vegas magic trick, like you like dangling you, right? It's
yeah,
like, "Yeah, just now, I just want me to see your face." You have to it's like,
gotcha.
"I do,
Yeah.
gotcha."
Yeah, so that's where all that kind of stuff comes from. And then the bridesmaid and best man stuff, that's going to also be different for you.
Yes, we're not doing really any of that at all. And there's like I said, there's really gonna be nobody there.
Yeah.
Her parents are gonna be there. Taylor and his girlfriend are gonna be there and are officiant, and that is it.
Yeah.
So there's no
20
bridesmaids
people standing off on the side each
yeah,
way.
there's no,
Yeah.
there's no bachelor party. There's no,
Right.
there's none of the classic bachelorette stuff.
Mhm.
We didn't, none of that stuff. This is not, we're going to be throwing a party in 2022 with her parents out in Texas, where they're building
And
you
everyone
know,
is
a house.
invited.
So everyone, literally everyone. Is invited. So that's kind of what we're doing. Is everything that we're not doing here is like we're going to do it later. So
Mhm.
that's fine. This is about just affirming me and Emily's relationship.
But it will be a joyous experience
Oh
nonetheless.
man, oh yeah. We'll name a few other kind of surprising wedding movies. Wolf of Wall Street. That kind of becomes it's almost bigger in the background as he uses all the wedding activity as a cover for illegal write-offs and, and all
Oh,
sorts
I've
of
never seen
junk.
it.
So I realized, oh yeah, that is definitely bigger a bigger part of that movie than I had realized. Spy Kids. Spy Kids has one of the best weddings I think I have ever seen. You were asking about best weddings. Spy Kids has it.
Yeah.
It opens with. Have you seen it? Do you remember?
I watched it for like half an hour in a summer camp or something, and I was so horrified because I think I was not prepared. It's like shockingly grotesque. It's just like
It is.
bizarre.
It is very. It is loud.
I don't think I was
Always.
prepared for the like mutated people. I don't even remember. I just remember being like, "Oh, this is very bizarre, and I don't like it." And we're forced to sit here and watch it at this summer camp.
But
'Cause
the
it
opening is
rained or
the
whatever.
children are asking for a bedtime story. The mom comes up and starts talking about these spies that then fall in love, and then they're at their wedding, and then they get attacked. And it's this like incredible Mission Impossible movie with like these amazing military helicopters descend on them. They're like all the brides maids and the groomsmen like grab parachutes and like hook their boys up and like put the
Yeah.
bride and groom in all the gear. They're getting attacked, and it's like the most action movie thing ever as the bride and groom like run off the side of the cliff and open their heart-shaped parachutes as the minister like blesses them as they get it's like it's beautiful.
My mind was definitely glossed that over for fear of the other horrifying things that the scientist was doing later.
I'm watching it now. I'm watching it now. Just laughing straight through it. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Rodriguez, you're a genius. Thank you so much. But to continue, I'll just kind of like rapid fire here of just like wedding movies you wouldn't have thought about. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Men in Tights. Brokeback Mountain, Independence Day, Scarface, Wayne's World 2, Moonrise Kingdom, The Godfather, Raising Arizona,
The
Forrest
Godfather, my
Gump.
God.
I know, and
It
as
starts
soon
with
as
it.
you say that, you almost feel stupid for not realizing. Like, oh, of course, it's the way, of course, But it kind of blanks your mind. You kind of glaze over, like, oh my God, The Godfather, but it's true. Forrest Gump, The Graduate, The Hangover, if you forget, is all about a wedding. I almost don't even count on that. I almost don't even count that because it's so integral. I almost feel like it's like 27 dresses or something.
Or it's like
that.
the old Shakespeare stuff where it's like, well, we don't show that. It's about the
Right.
buildup, because the wedding itself might not be even that. It's a ceremony, but like it's all the drama around it. Yeah.
Live and Let Die. Bond drives a boat through a wedding, but they don't get annihilated by the villain there. So he kind of saves the wedding and ruins it all the same way. But yes, weddings they're all over the place. They're used as a crutch and a device in so many more things than we think about than just being a wedding movie or some proposal movie, an engagement movie. All these sorts. There's a genre for this, but it's all over the place.
A pivotal part of our existence.
My God.
I have a couple more if you're interested, since you had mentioned not having groomsmen and bridesmaids and some last traditions.
Of course.
The best man. The best man for the job. What job is that? It was originally, like we said, if it was either a kidnapping or there was a chance that this wasn't going to go through or there were other rival suitors, etc., the best man was the best sword fighter, ready to fend off the objectors. That's what his job was, was to be there to fight them off. And then with the bridesmaids, the dresses go back to even early Roman times where they all match. Nowadays, it's like the bridesmaids cannot look better. Like the bride has to be the best looking one. But originally, they were all dressed the same, and that was to confuse either the captors or the gang if they were going to take the wrong person on the day, if scandal was afoot. Which honestly, it carries over. It's like being a bridesmaid or being the best man. It's like, that's a really serious position, but it was even more serious because it's like, well, I might get taken. Like, or, oh, you're going to have to fight somebody so that I can marry this person. That. It's not just setting up the bachelor party.
I need you to be here to fight off all of the would-be kidnappers and secondary suitors. And I need all of you to stand in as the queen. Nobody will know.
A bunch of zebras. Yeah. Yeah. So that's
like
where that
Queen Amidala hiding in her maids.
That was just how it was. You never knew what was going to happen.
That's another one. Star Wars Episode 2. They get married. I forget. Attack of the Clones. They get married right, exactly like I'm doing, eloping right next to the sea.
Oh wow!
With R2D2.
You're having that old C3PO. Episode 2 wedding. I wanted to bring up the rings, because this, I mean, maybe it's kind of upsetting, but it was just the craziness of
we can handle it. We're adults
rings.
Here.
It started there's evidence in Egypt from 2,800 years BCE, but the diamond engagement ring portion of it, that is designed by a company to sell diamonds. So before World War II, only less than 10% of engagement rings contain diamonds. It was not a thing. They're super expensive. Nobody really needs them, etc. There's a company, which is a family, which is now one massive thing. It was De Beers Consolidated Mines. They all consolidated into one thing because they had discovered huge diamond mine supplies in the late 1800s. But they had to hold on to the myth that diamonds are scarce and valuable. And so part of the problem is if they sell them, they need to figure out a way to keep that mythology of diamonds and also avoid resale of them, because if you get them and then you can just they have to be the ones. So they figured out this brilliant scheme, which is, well, we'll attach them to engagements, to something emotional, to marriage, to weddings, to long-lasting things, so that it will keep them off the market. So they did this whole amazing partnering with this ad agency to make the measure of love synonymous with the expensiveness of a diamond. Their whole 2-month salary thing That
What?
was a marketing thing designed by them. That is not based in reality. They gave diamonds to celebrities to accentuate the size and importance. They had a lecture
Oh my
circuit in high
god.
schools, like training young girls to say, "Oh, you want a diamond?" Their catchphrase, which everybody knows now, "A diamond is forever," is great emotionally as it relates to love. But again, it has a more sinister, I suppose, purpose, which is it keeps the resale price
Whoa.
high, because and so stops the fluctuation of it, because it's like, oh yeah, this diamond lasts forever. It's forever. I'm not going to sell it, or I'm going to pass it down. It's going to be in some
Right.
safety deposit box, and it's not going to It's not going to create depreciation on a bunch of other diamonds out in the
What's
market.
fascinating, because I'm in the middle of this right now, is as a gift, my my mother gifted me some engagement wedding ring set
Yeah,
that has diamonds in it. So I'm in the middle of this, like, exactly this quandary. Like, what do I do with this?
it's so
I
hard
need
to
to move
sell.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm like, actually, everything you've just been talking about, I'm like, right. This is, oh god, I'm trapped.
yeah. And then
Uh,
in the 40 years from 39 to 79, US sales for diamonds went from 23 million to 2 billion. That's an
whoa,
insane growth,
we've
but it
been
all
brainwashed for
it all comes,
diamonds.
it's like, yeah, you ask anybody, it's like, of course I want a diamond engagement ring. Are you insane? But it's like,
Yeah,
like we talked about how, oh, things have changed in the past 40 years more than they have in the past 5,000. Like, that is an
look at that.
entirely made up thing.
Ugh, I'm
Which,
disgusted.
yeah. Well, here's
So
something.
we can be so easily moved.
Yeah, yeah. Here's some not disgusting stuff. The wedding cake is also a huge important thing to have. I assume you will. I guess I shouldn't assume
Oh
anything
yes,
about
I'm
that. Yeah.
excited about our wedding cake. It's gonna be strawberry, lightly
Ooh,
strawberry. It's gonna be great.
amazing.
So it's gonna be amazing. We'll pick it up in the morning. I'm so excited.
The traditionally cake was not on the menu. It was the groom would gnaw off a piece of barley bread, and then the remainder was held over the bride's head and broken, which showers
What?
her with crumbs, which I think became the, like,
Weird.
eating it and smushing it in
Yeah.
her face, like that kind of thing. But then the whole like, everything was about luck or warding away spirits or whatever. So guests would run and pick up the crumbs for good luck as it goes over her. So that kind of merged into slicing up pieces and giving them to the guests. But there was this
Uh,
bizarre ceremony where the bride would pass through these small morsels, like squish them through her wedding ring into their hand. But then that took too long or was a waste of time or whatever. So then
weird.
that just became, well, we'll just give you the whole slice. We don't have to
Good
smush
lord.
it through
You
her
can
ring.
have that.
But even still, the slice would be taken home, and the guests would put it under their pillow for good luck.
Good lord.
And then it just became, well, let's just eat this at the reception. Like, what are we doing?
Do you why do we I guess I'm about to do it. But a lot, I guess modern couples, maybe this is an old thing. I don't know anything about it, but they save part of their wedding cake for the first year anniversary.
So that was, yeah, that was a part of, in terms of, again, the purpose of marriage was to unite families, create offspring. Sounds barbaric saying it that way, but the saving
Create
of the
offspring.
the saving of the topper of the cake was for, okay, well, we're going to have a child soon, hopefully in exactly 9 months. And so that would be for the
From
christening of
tonight.
the child. Yeah. That would be for the christening of the child. So it saves on cake, since cake is like a commodity. But nobody does that or it's like,
It's a budgeting thing.
yeah. Or the intention
We
is,
need
oh,
this
this is,
for when we have the christening.
we
Save
got this baby. Yeah. And then some other stuff relating to the baby business, the honeymoon, where that comes
Mm.
from. So even after the stealing of the bride away to have a baby became, oh, well, this is like expected. This doesn't have to be some covert thing warding off with the best man slashing and hacking at people who are trying to attack.
God.
There would still be, especially in Scandinavia, Norse couples would play act this kind of fake abduction and go into hiding. And then where the honeymoon part comes in was drinking honey mead, the beverage, which supposedly
Mm.
helped with fertility. And they would do that for a full moon cycle. So that's the honeymoon, is
Oh,
after,
interesting.
so that, oh, we'll have a kid or we'll become pregnant in this time. So that's where the term honeymoon comes from.
Oh,
Is
that's
drinking.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Didn't expect it to kind of break down so literally there.
Right. Me either.
I'm interested in honey mead. I've had regular mead.
Yeah.
I think I've had licorice mead. I would like to try the honey version. It sounds more pleasant.
For your honeymoon.
For my honeymoon.
The last tradition, which is the most probably movie literature important thing to people, is the kiss.
Yes.
And this, so as the church comes in and the priests make it sacrament, originally it was the priest would give out a holy kiss of peace, and that would be to the other priests and the parishioners and everything. So that tradition upheld
a kiss.
Yeah. That tradition upheld, and probably people still do it in some churches, but that upheld as far as the kiss of peace, the blessings to the bride. But it would be originally first given to the groom. So the priest would give a holy kiss of peace to the groom, who would then pass that kiss on to the bride. Hence the now famous, "You may now kiss the bride." But the priest had to kiss him first, but not in a sexual way. But it would
in front of everyone.
It's just so interesting that the priest would kiss the groom and then say, "Okay, you may now kiss the bride now that the church has blessed this." But probably bizarre.
Okay, you kiss me. Now you kiss her.
Now it's good. Yeah. But that's the way it was done. So that's where the kiss... Now the priests do not kiss the groom for most weddings, I think. Well, that's all the wedding stuff.
My God. Thank you so much, Taylor.
Thank you. Happy wedding. I'm excited to be there. We will be there if you're listening to this. Well, we'll be done, I guess.
We'll be done. We'll have done it the day prior. It's going to be exciting. But and thank you out there for listening to us for 100 episodes. It's kind of incredible. It's
almost 2 years every week.
Yeah, 100 episodes.
We're unstoppable.
Thank you guys so much. I really love all the feedback and all the participation you guys send out. So let us know what you're reading. Let us know what you're watching. Let us know what you want us to do an episode on. As you can see from today, it doesn't always have to, strictly be a hot new thing. Yeah, but just get in touch with us. Let us know what's going on. Let us know if I brought up a movie you didn't agree with. Maybe it's not a wedding movie and I put it on the list. That kind of stuff is fine too. Show me what for. Anyway.
At ILLITERATE on Instagram, as always, is where you can reach us. Give us a message. We'd love to hear from you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Catch you next week.